did the Valar abandon Middle-earth? Those familiar with the Silmarillion will know of the powers of the West, the Holy Ones known as the Valar. We learn of their struggle against Melkor and the position of authority they hold under the One, Eru Ilúvatar. Why then are they absent from the Lord of the Rings, when Melkor's greatest servant Sauron is a threat to the world? Was the Dark Lord correct in thinking the Valar had abandoned Middle-earth? Could more have been done than just sending the Istari? This video will look at the role of the Valar in Middle-earth in the Third Age, and why a lack of direct intervention was necessary for the good of Middle-earth. Many of us find it easy to read the events of Middle-earth and ask why those with the greatest authority and power did not put a stop to the evils of the world. Why doesn't Eru just will Morgoth out of existence? Why don't the Valar just sweep into Middle-earth in the Third Age and drag Sauron back to Valinor? These are questions often asked. We view these beings as angels or gods, and see a lack of direct action as the children of Ilúvatar suffer thousands of years of torment under Dark Lords. Tolkien speaks of the folly of applying mortal judgment to one such as Manwë, essentially saying that the Elder King would perceive things with a greater clarity than mortals could perceive dimly. We are not fit to find fault in his action or perceived inaction. If we dare to attempt to enter the mind of the Elder King, assigning motives and finding faults, there are things to remember before we deliver a judgment. Manwë was the spirit of greatest wisdom and prudence in Arda. He is represented as having had the greatest knowledge of the music as a whole, possessed by any one finite mind, and he alone of all persons or minds in that time is represented as having the power of direct recourse to and communication with Eru. He must have grasped with great clarity what even we may perceive dimly, that it was the essential mode of the process of history in Arda that evil should constantly arise, and that out of it new good should constantly come. When I try to rationalise the morality of Tolkien in these matters, I have to take into account that he was a devout Catholic, who developed his legendarium in the early to mid-20th century. I think there can be a problem when people attempt to modernise this world and the beings within it. I don't have to agree with Tolkien's thoughts, but I will always use them to explain what he created. The passage I quoted explains that the Elder King is the spirit of greatest wisdom and prudence. He can communicate with Eru and perceives what we cannot. From the evil that sprouted in Arda, good would come from it. Despite thousands of years of grief and suffering, good would still be the result in the end, the possibility of a greater good than one could have possibly imagined. Could the Valar have come to Middle-earth and wiped out all evil creatures? It is possible, but we have to think beyond that. Would evil arise again? Would the world be left in ruin with such action? Would good come from it? Would the peoples of Middle-earth become dependent on the Valar in the future? These are the questions that must be asked before expecting all problems to be solved in this way. The Valar, over time, restricted their actions, as there had to be a divide between the children and those who came first from Eru. Originally, the Valar shaped the world, raised mountains, created rivers, etc. With the world being shaped, Melkor disrupted it. The Valar, in an effort to maintain this world they were shaping, would fight back. From this, continents would shift, and nature itself would change. The world was no longer a picture of what the Valar had imagined, but they still fought to save it. That is, until the awakening of the elves. With the arrival of the elves, the focus was not so much on the shaping of the already shaped world, but the protection of the awakened children of Ilúvatar, who were now set to inhabit the world. The duty of the Valar was to protect them from the corrupting and overwhelming influence of Melkor, who wasted no time in tormenting them. In the Battle of the Powers, fought by the Valar against the fallen Melkor, the Valar were victorious. But at the last, the gates of Utumno were broken, and the halls unroofed, and Melkor took refuge in the uttermost pit. Then Tulkas stood forth as champion of the Valar, and wrestled with him, and cast him upon his face, and he was bound with the chain and Gainor that Aula had wrought, and led captive, and the world had peace for a long age. After this defeat, Melkor is imprisoned, leading to the race of elves maturing greatly and making their own mark on the world. With his release, he returns to his old ways, with greater wrath and hatred. The world is now home to the elves, with kingdoms and treasures within it, absent when Melkor was last disrupting the work of the Valar. With Melkor's return to evil, the Valar are faced with the problem of intervention. Elves want to fight for what they have made, and intervention from the powers could lead to the unmaking of all the elves have wrought. If the Valar directly assault Melkor again, the elves of Middle-earth and their realms could be destroyed. It is often said that the Valar favoured the elves and helped them, abandoning men in the process. The untold destruction of the early wars with Melkor could lead to more destruction if those wars were reignited. I think it is wrong to say men were abandoned, rather than saying the Valar lacked understanding of the race of men and their place in the world. They were free to shape their own destiny, free from the music of the Ainur. The Valar interfering in the free will of men could be interfering with their role in the world. Once again, the Valar never abandoned men, even placing the sun and moon for the benefit of the second-born. It is said indeed that even as the Valar made war upon Melkor for the sake of the Quendi, so now for that time they forbore for the sake of the Hildor, the aftercomers, the younger children of Iluvatar. For so grievous had been the hurts of Middle-earth in the war upon Utumno, that the Valar feared lest even worse should now befall, whereas the Hildor should be mortal and weaker than the Quendi to withstand fear and tumult. Moreover, it was not revealed to Manwë where the beginning of men should be, north, south or east. Therefore the Valar sent forth light. The actions of the Valar were always to protect the world, and they grieved at the fact that more direct action could make everything worse. It can be difficult for us to justify, since we know Melkor is a being of power far beyond the strength of mortals to stop. Those powers of the West can match him, and we would see them as morally obligated to help, stepping in to stop one of their own order. The point here is that they did help, but in a way that would not make it a pointless exercise through the ruin of the world, or its inhabitants. Tolkien saw the passage of time and the growth of the children as the moment for less direct intervention on the part of the Valar. When the first Dark Lord was defeated, most of Beleriand was destroyed, leading to the rise of the second Dark Lord being handled in a different way. To deal with Sauron, peers of Sauron were sent. The Istari were sent with cloaked wisdom and divine purpose, in forms that would not daunt the peoples of Middle-earth. Power had been sent, but they were forbidden from matching Sauron's own power with their own. What good comes from this? The will of Eru is fulfilled. Men will inherit the earth, and they are the ones that would earn this position of authority. The race of men will grow spiritually through their conflict with Sauron, defeating him with aid from the West, but still being the ones to defeat him. It is again hard for us to justify through the loss of countless lives and thousands of years of suffering across generations of men. We cannot say the Valar did not care, as men would most certainly have suffered defeat, had Eru not enhanced the plan of the Valar by sending Gandalf back to Middle-earth with greater authority and power, the wizard then being instrumental in helping Middle-earth defeat Sauron. This speaks of the wish of the Valar not to interfere with the plans of Eru in a way that would undermine them, the same reason they gave up authority over Valinor when the men of Numenor assaulted that land in the Second Age. Their lack of action at that moment speaks volumes of just how much they did care, and how they felt they weren't justified in taking violent action against the race of men. The Valar are not exempt from free will, and are not puppets or extensions of Eru in the way that the Ringwraiths are slaves to the will of Sauron. The Valar punished the Noldor after they required punishment for their rebellion and the kinslaying at Alqualonda, though they had to also allow anyone who sided with the Noldor to suffer their fate too, as they couldn't interfere so directly in matters of free will. This explains why Doriath eventually falls, as they were not directly involved in the wars with Morgoth until Thingol sought a Silmaril. It can then be argued that the elves destroyed Doriath, despite Morgoth being the weapon that carried out the deed. With the Valar and their role in Middle-earth, we are talking about the problem of evil, free will and allowing free beings to set their own course. With men free from being tied to the world, to shape it for them is to act like Melkor, one who actively attempts to force his will on the race of men and others. This is seen as one of the greatest acts of evil that is possible in Tolkien's world: abuse of power, daunting the independence of others through your superior will. The arrival of the children changed the approach of the Valar in matters related to Middle-earth, as their future was tied to Eru, and was a future that none of the Valar knew in their hearts. It limited what they were willing to do. The wisdom of the Valar and their foresight was beyond the understanding of those who came after. We can view the death and destruction brought on by Sauron in the Second and Third Ages as cruel and harsh, but Sauron was still defeated. I do think in Tolkien's Legendarium that free will is a sacred gift that must be protected, and that Eru's plan for the world will ultimately bring good from suffering. As Sauron falls, the race of men can acknowledge all they have lost in that fight, learning what they must cherish and the sacrifices others made to allow them to inherit the world. Their spirit will be enhanced. They will strive to protect the world. The Valar did not abandon Middle-earth, but helped with subtlety, allowing them to then step even further back as elves leave Middle-earth, and men become responsible for the world the Valar shaped so long ago.